This is Evans, Chapter 5, Problem 2, and we're given a question here. A market research company surveyed companies to determine their ranked preferences of energy drinks among the brands Monster, Red Bull, and Rockstar. What are the outcomes of this experiment for one respondent? Any one respondent, or any one respondent over here, these are the possibilities, and the total permutations would be you might pick a Monster with a Red Bull second and a Rockstar third, or you might pick Monster first and then have the other two in the other order. And you'll go through there where Red Bull, let's try Red Bull first. Maybe somebody likes Red Bull first, Monster second, Rockstar third, Red Bull first, but they like Rockstar more than Monster, is different from the previous example there. And then finally, Rockstar is their preference. So we just listed the entire outcomes of what could happen here, and there's 6 of them, total of 6. Okay. So what are the outcomes of the experiment for one respondent? There they are. What is the probability that one respondent will rank Red Bull first? Well, there's 2 chances in a total of 6 that they're going to like Red Bull first, so that's going to equal just 2/6. Okay, the probability is 2/6 there. That's simply all it is. It's changing it to a format here. Let's change this over to text really quickly here. This isn't a big problem. I think everybody's going to get this one pretty obviously. Let's change it to text. Okay, and we're going to make that 2/6. Okay, probability is 2/6 of that. Okay. The next question is, what is the probability that 2 respondents will both rank Red Bull first? Well, they're independent. Some of the things they're trying to draw out here, there's 2 things. One, they're independent tests, and the second thing is you use the probability of the second person is going to be actually equal to the same as the first. It's 2 chances out of 6 in an entirely unbiased test. You have to be careful if you pick your respondents from a certain pool. It might be predictable that they're going to come in a certain order here. So you're trying to get probably a very varied, diverse group here in to see who likes this. Okay. So anyway, the multiplication rule would be this would be equal to 2/6 times itself. So the opportunity or the probability is 0.1 continuing. Okay, that's it. This is the solution for Evans Chapter 5, Problem 5, which is an extension of Problem 2. So I reproduced the table that we had in there of these cards. We're picking one card, not replacing it, picking a second card, and we're adding up the points here. So this is just the data from Problem 2 reproduced. Let A be the event that the total card value is odd, so the total values are listed here. We're going to add up the probabilities associated with the odd combinations here, combinations where you get an odd sum. Okay, so that'd be the probability for 3 and 5 and 7 all the way down to 19. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that. I'll show 2 different ways to do it. There's minor differences between them. So we're going to add cell by cell here, probability for each of these. So the probability is 0.556 or 0.6, depending on where you want to round up to. Okay, the probability that it's odd. Now, the property that they're using here is that these are exclusive events, so we could go through and add up everything that was not odd, and in this case is even. We have a name for that, right? Or you can just say that it's equal to 1 minus probability that it was odd. And that should just complement, okay, because these are exclusive. You can do that because they're mutually exclusive. What is the probability that the sum of the 2 cards will be more than 14? Okay, just before we jump to that one, this doesn't make too much difference how you do this, but I did want to show when we did add up the probability of the odd, you can also use the sum function almost in the same way. So we're going to do this. It's actually a little bit quicker this way. I'm using the control function just to select the entries that we want. Hit enter, same number. So the sum is a little bit faster using your finger work. You can do either way. All right, I just want to show that before we go on. But what is the probability that the sum of the two cards will be more than 14? So now what we can take a look at when we start taking a look at these kinds of questions is you can look at the cumulative function of probability, cumulative probability distribution function now. Open this up a little bit here. So the probability for any one of these instances, the cumulative function of this, cumulative probability, is done like this. So this is a running total, and we just take the total plus the new entry as we're going across or going down our table here. So actually now we can just drag this down. Okay. And now what we see is the probability that the outcome is at least, this terminology is important, it's at least 6 or at least 12, whatever it is. They're asking for 14. Now we can just take a look in the table and say, what's the combined cumulative probability that the sum of the two cards will be more than 14? And that means 15 or 16, 17, 18, 19. And so we can actually take a look at the property and use the fact that we can use subtraction in our... Let me say that again. Okay. So we're going to use a probability, this cumulative probability function here. Let's plot that. Let's just plot that really quickly here. And we'll go into this and insert. Let's use a line chart now. This, okay, so we do that. And we can see that this demonstrates the probability that you have at least, for instance, at least a 14 would be something around 0.9, somewhere in there. If we go to our table, if we look at the number, if we get 14, it's 0.8, okay? I was just kind of reading quickly off the chart here where it was, okay? What we're going to do is just fix this and create the labels that we need here. Say okay, so this is the probability, okay, of 14. Now when we look at it, we have the labels correct. The labels weren't correct before. Under 14, under this bin, it intercepts the probability at 8. Okay, so I just had to make an adjustment. I had to put the correct labels down there. Before it was just using 1 through I think 17 or 18. However, number 19 was 2, 7. We had 17 samples there, and so I actually put the actual corresponding card sum, the sum of the two cards down here, as far as that goes. So that's all I did. Okay. When you use a cumulative function like this, if they were to ask what is the probability that the sum of the two cards is at least 14, it's the complement of this. So we're talking about complements here. If it's at least 14, that would be 0.8. And because these are exclusive events, the way that it works is you can use the probability. Let's put that, I'm going to move this here just a bit and put in here that the probability of greater than 14 is just 1, the total probability, minus that entry there. So it's 20%. And that way, I just did this really quick cumulative table here. They didn't really ask for that, but it helps. You can visualize it and understand it a little bit more. That's how you do it. This is the solution, Evans, Chapter 5, Problem 6. And we're going to use Problem 3, so I pulled it over. I recreated the data in there and also set us up here because we have 5 parts to 6. To question Problem 6, we have 5 parts to it here. And drew ourselves a little bit of a diagram here that'll help understand how these probabilities work. So, referring to the coin scenario described in Problem 3, let A be the event that you have exactly 2 heads, find probability of A. We have to find all the instances when there's exactly 2 heads. And if we come through here and we start counting, that does not fit it, but this one does. There's 2 heads there, exactly 2 we're looking for. There's one there, there's one there, there's one there. There's 3, okay? So we have 3 instances times probability is even for all of these, so we have a 37.5% chance of taking 2 heads, exactly 2 heads, okay? Part B says, what's the probability of at most 1 head? That's all the instances where there's 0 or 1 head, okay? So that doesn't work. 2 heads in there, 2 heads in there, but we do have 1 here, 0 here, 1 here, and 1 here, so that's 4 instances. It's 4 times probability. 50% chance that you're going to have 0 or 1 head. At least, but no more than that. Just 0 or 1, no more, not 2 or 3. Okay? That's how the question reads. So C is the event that there are at least 2 heads. So that means we have 2 or 3 heads. So well, there we have 3 there. There's the second one. Here's a third one. And there's a fourth one here, okay? So again, we had 50% chance of having at least 2 heads. That's 2 or 3. But that one, not 0. Okay, so part D says, are the events A and B mutually exclusive? Find probability of A or B. So what we're going to find out is A was exactly 2 heads versus the situation when you have 0 or 1. Those are exclusive. They do not overlay each other. So this is the probability of A, represented by a circle, and this is probability by B, by an ellipse here. Okay, and the total is represented by the box. This is how I did it in class. I showed the total probability is 1, or 100%, and you have a probability of A and a probability of B. And when they're exclusive, they're not overlying each other. They don't contain any of the same elements, okay? So they're separate. So the answer is yes, they are mutually exclusive. And what is the probability that you're going to get an A or a B? And that's the instance where you add, okay? So the probability of A plus the probability of B, that's just simply going to be that plus this, and you have 0.875% or 87.5% chance of it happening, 0.875 probability that you have an A or B. That's a pretty high probability. Okay. So now, when we look at E, are the events A and C mutually exclusive? Find the probability of A or C happening. Okay. So when we use this mutual exclusive test on this, I'll change this to C so it's accurate, makes sense. Okay, so that's C. That's the probability of C. Okay, A says you have exactly 2 heads, and C says you have at least 2 heads. Okay, so the probability of C is going to be larger. We already saw that because it's whether you have 2 or 3 versus if you have exactly 2 heads. But they're overlying each other because C does contain some part of A. Okay, as a matter of fact, if you really look at it, C contains all of A. Okay, so the way that you answer this one is that no, it's not mutually exclusive, and the equation for when you have non-mutually exclusive is the sum minus the probability of A. So it's going to be equal to C plus A, but minus A because it contains it, and you're going to end up with a 50% chance of A or B happening. Okay, that's the solution for problem 6.